Welcome to episode 93 from the Shed End. Theo, how you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Finally, a Chelsea win to talk about in a bit, which I'm looking forward to. A bit congested and sniffy with a mix of a cold and hay fever. So if I sound a bit nasal on this pod, apologies in advance for that. But other than that, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Definitely. I think every Friday we come on and we give our hay fever update. But yeah, definitely still suffering from the pollen. But apart from that, I'm good. I'm good. Like you said, a nice win to talk about last weekend. Very good performance, which we'll talk about shortly. But if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you hit the link in the link tree link in the description below. That'll take you to all our social accounts as well and our YouTube channel as well. So make sure again you go and subscribe on there as well. Let's get straight into it because Bournemouth was a game that we've not had the best of performances there previously as well. But what a performance! I mean, it was a good performance from the lads. Frank got the first win as interim back in his second spell at Chelsea as manager. What was your thoughts initially with the lineup? Was there any question marks about the lineup and also the performance as well?
Yeah, I was a bit frustrated at first with the lineup, if I'm honest. I thought he went with a back four, which I thought that this game really needed a back three of the wing backs, and I'd have had Loftus Cheek as my wing back. He played Chalobah in his unnatural position at right back. Then I believe it was Enzo, Kante, Gallagher, with trying to remember now, Havertz,
Modric
Madrick, and
Madueke.
Madueke. Yeah, I guess Madueke deserved to be there, and he was again kind of the standout performer for me. But I would have gone with uh, a back four, back three. I would have had maybe Loftus Cheek and potentially Chilwell or uh, or Hall as the left wing back. But maybe I think Fofana's late injury maybe meant that Frank had to switch to a back four, which maybe explains that. But glad he dropped Kovacic for this one. I think that midfield three of Enzo, Kante, Kovacic clearly hasn't worked lately, so I think it was needed for a bit of a switch. But yeah, lineup I think could have been better, could have been worse in my opinion.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think some of those like the changes you mentioned, obviously Wesley Fofana, late injury to him, the lack of depth that we've currently got at right back with Reece James being injured. Trevor Chalobah was probably the most in a back four was probably the most sensible option to go with, I think. But um, overall, I was impressed. I'll be honest. I think overall, in terms of the performance itself, I was impressed. We dominated both halves. For me, we created a lot more. I know we create chances anyway, but we was actually getting players on the end of the, in that final third, on the end of the ball, trying to make something happen in the final third. And it was just a totally different shift in how we've watched Chelsea over the last couple of games, especially under Frank Lampard. But it was just a totally different game for us. We felt on top of the game throughout for me, and I didn't feel even, going 1-0 up. I think I said to you, we need more than one goal. We need to try and kill the game off. And Conor Gallagher, again, someone who I've got mixed opinions of, but he's always in the right place at the right time with quite a scuffed kind of header, but it was still a goal that's on target. And he took it well. He played really well in that game. But their goal, I mean, we have to talk about their goal. I think it was Vina. Brilliant strike. Could Kepa have done any more to save that, or was it just too good of a strike?
I mean, like you look at the goal we conceded at Wolves, the goal we conceded to Brighton, the Vina goal. I think there's been a few more this season where it's probably been their goal of the season, but it's all been against Chelsea. And before I kind of question Kepa, because he does have this kind of bit of a tendency to concede these long range wonder strikes or goals. I just feel like we need to close these players down a lot quicker, and I think that's down to the midfielders and the defenders. So I want to cut Kepa some slack here. And to be fair, it was a wonder goal. I think it was just a whisker away from the post, or might have even hit the post before going in. So I don't think there's much Kepa could have done. But it was too easy for Vina to even have that space to shoot. And I think I even messaged you 5 minutes before that goal went in and said Vina looks a bit dangerous today. He looks like a player. And I think I googled him. He's on loan from Roma, so I think if he's out of favour at Roma, he'll probably stay in the Premier League at Bournemouth, or he'll go back to Roma as he's a Uruguayan international. So I think he's got a bright future wherever he goes. But yeah, typical Chelsea goal to concede, really, a little long range wonder strike. But I thought we responded quite well, especially in that second half. I thought there was maybe periods of the first half where we looked like, could maybe allow Brighton to score more than one. But in that second half, I thought we were under control. And big credit to Frank Lampard. I know there was a lot of criticism on Twitter about the substitutions he made, but they all had an impact on the game. They really did. You look at Loftus-Cheek, he was playing in his more natural midfield position and looked really lively. Hakim Ziyech, who, yeah, sure, you can tell he doesn't want to be at Chelsea from his body language, but the ball he put for Badiashile was on the plate. It was fantastic. And that's what we've been lacking so much this season, just a player from set pieces that can get the ball into the box. And also João Felix, who came off the bench and scored the third goal, which kind of made things a lot more comfortable going into those final 5 or 6 minutes of the game. Maybe I would have gone with when Chilwell went off injured, I would have gone maybe with Hall instead of Aspi. We know that Aspi's not a natural left back and he doesn't really have the legs anymore, but he got the job done. Maybe he just added a bit more leadership and that mentality we needed to kind of finish the game off. But overall, I thought the subs were questionable at first, but they really paid off.
Yeah, credit to Frank, because I think I've definitely criticised the subs or the timing of the subs. Sometimes we go 1-0 down, we wait for that goal to go in, and then we leave it a bit longer and we go 2-1 down or 2-0 down. But I think when he realised, that early goal, I think Bournemouth probably scored around the 20th minute mark or around there. He kept it tight, kept it compact for the rest of that half. And then it's second half, he made those, like you said, crucial subs, and obviously Chilwell was forced in terms of I think it's a hamstring injury that he's picked up. But in terms of Badiashile, I mean, someone that we've been crying to see back in the squad. I mean, he looks again like a really good performance. Getting forward as well, as I said before. Getting into those crucial areas in the final third. And like I said, Hakim Ziyech putting in a beautiful ball, and João Felix as well. Someone that again is splitting the fan base. Should we keep him? Shouldn't we? But you see what he can do when he's in the right place at the right time as well. And he is that, for me, the one player going forward that is trying to make something happen whenever he's got the opportunity to do so. So I was really impressed. And I know it doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things in terms of pushing for Europe, or it was that 40-point thing that was over our heads. And we joked about the relegation, and well, not even joked, but we were talking about relegation and whatever else. But to see a good performance and 3 points, and hopefully take that into that Forest game tomorrow as well. We have to build on that regardless of where we are in the league. I think we have to continue to just build on that for next season now. But let's move on, because we've got quite a bit to talk about in this episode as well. But I just wanted to talk about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, someone who again didn't feature in the game, but obviously I think I read on Monday or Tuesday that he's got a very hefty appearance fee per game in his contract with Chelsea. He's obviously come out very openly and said that he does want to go back to Barcelona or leave Chelsea at least in the summer. Do you think that was probably a mistake from the ownership of Chelsea at the time? Because obviously, we know we needed a striker when we signed Aubameyang. We needed someone that was a number 9. And obviously the fact that he wasn't included in the Champions League squad, it's possibly now making sense as to why, because from a financial business perspective, it isn't viable to play someone who, one, probably doesn't want to be at the club, isn't performing as they thought he would be, and then having to pay those fees out every game. Do you think it was just a mistake from the owners to put maybe that clause into a contract, or maybe it was Aubameyang's agent who demanded that go in before he signs the deal?
It's a weird one. Like, for in my opinion, any football club shouldn't sign a player if they're going to have that kind of moment that's going to trigger them or make them feel scared to even play that player. I think it was Stefan El Shaarawy when he went to Monaco on loan. He played like the first 10 games, was amazing, and then he just stopped playing him because I think if he played more than a certain amount of games, they would have had to pay, I think it was Roma or AC Milan, a certain fee. And it felt like almost we were maybe scared to play Aubameyang. He'd play one game, wouldn't be on the bench for the next one, and that's what happened. He played at the Emirates last week. He wasn't even on the bench against Bournemouth, and I think he was on holiday in Gabon, meeting his family. So clearly he's not going to be at Chelsea this summer. But for me, it's just a silly decision. Last August, whenever it was, when we signed this player with this kind of clause in his contract that we've got to pay whenever we play him, or if he reaches a certain amount of games, we have to pay. So for financial reasons, we haven't included him in our Champions League squad. You do wonder maybe if that was maybe what crossed the line with Tuchel and Bowley, because I think Tuchel really pushed for this signing. Maybe Bowley wasn't as keen, and maybe Tuchel pushed to the point where he had to include this to be able to allow Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to come to Chelsea. But for me, it's one of those things that we should learn from and not really have that in those players' contracts that we sign going forward.
Yeah, it does seem to be, you know, Bowley has made, or, you know, the hierarchy have made mistakes over the period of their time currently at Chelsea, and I think they're learning as they go along. You know, I think they're realizing that they need to adapt and they need to change things and they need to learn from these mistakes. And I do think it was a massive mistake to have such a clause that prevents you or restricts you from possibly playing someone as like Aubameyang when you haven't got any other option. You know, you haven't got. I mean, we've got David Dattra Fofana, who clearly isn't first choice. We've been playing Kai Havertz, who, you know, gives you spells where he can do something, but 9 out of 10, you know, he missed the shot. So we've struggled in that department. We know that this is a historical thing, not just Aubameyang. This is, you know, we know that from beyond Aubameyang. But it's a difficult one because I feel clearly it hasn't worked out. I think The Athletic reported it as a failed marriage that clearly is on its way out. It's due to end very soon, because it does feel like that. It just feels like it's the elephant in the room. You know, we all know that he's going to leave. It hasn't worked out clearly for him. It hasn't worked out for the finances to bring him in. There's talk about him going back to Barcelona, but I think Barcelona can only get him if they get him on a free. It's such a messy, crazy, you know, deal that potentially would happen. See him go back to Barcelona. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. I think. What do you think should happen next with Aubameyang? You know, does he need to leave the club? Does he need to move on? Does he need to go somewhere else?
Yeah, I just think for his career, he's still got some football in him. He's still got some playing time. He's still got a European pedigree. I think, like you said, he's really keen on Barca. He had 6 months, really successful 6 months, and he's liked by the fans. He likes the club. He was even in the dressing room, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and he said in a live Instagram video or live TikTok recently that he'd like potentially to go back to Barca. I think I read that he would need to take a wage a drop in his wages should he go back there. There's also talks of maybe a swap deal, Atletico, Chelsea, and he's included to get Felix to Chelsea on a permanent deal. But yeah, I think just for both parties, I think we need to just cut ties, whether that even means like we did with Ross Barkley, just release him from his contract and let him leave. But I think we were just very optimistic as Chelsea fans. We had this proven Premier League goal scorer joining our club. But we need to know now, as soon as they take that number 9 shirt, it's cast. It really is cast. There's nothing good that's ever happened with it. We had a glimmer of hope maybe a long time ago with Hasselbank. We had it with Tammy Abraham, maybe the first season or so. But look at him now; he's playing football in Serie A. He only had 2 seasons at Chelsea. So yeah, I think that number 9 shirt, whoever takes it, needs to just know what to expect.
Yeah, Steven Sidwell as well. I mean, the less said the better. But no, I agree with you 100%. You know, I think it's a historical thing that's been happening at Chelsea for a very long time. The curse of the number 9. Matteo Kovacic, heavily linked this week with a move to Manchester City. You just mentioned before, clearly over the last couple of performances for Chelsea hasn't really put in what we expect from Matteo Kovacic and what we know he can do. But City are losing some midfielders, I think, over the next couple of weeks or so. You know, Gundogan, I think, is one that's been mentioned as might be going to Barca or somewhere else. But just in terms of Matteo Kovacic, someone that, I mean, I still think he is a really good player, but something has broken down with his time at Chelsea. It's really strange to strengthen Manchester City. I just don't agree with doing that. I don't agree with any club strengthening any other club in the league. But clearly, if City are after a player, for me, it always tells you that there's still quality in the player, otherwise they won't be going for them. What's your thoughts on Kovacic potentially going to City?
Yeah, I do agree with you to a certain extent, but we have to remember they wanted Cucurella, and then we kind of hijacked that deal. So, but no, I think Kovacic just hasn't really looked himself this season. He hasn't really been that Kovacic we grew to love under Thomas Tuchel, and it looked so good in that Champions League run where we won it in 2021. It does seem like his agent's trying to push for a move to Man City or even Tuchel's Bayern Munich as well. There could be a reunion there in the Bundesliga. But he's 29. I think this is the last kind of opportunity we get to get that 40 million that he's valued at. And he is a sellable asset as well. We don't have many sellable assets in the squad currently that we could sell to recoup a lot of money. I think the only two big ones potentially that we could potentially sell for 40 million or over are maybe Gallagher or Kovacic, where there seems to be interest for those two players. But I completely agree with you. It'd be foolish and stupid to strengthen a rival. If you've got Pep Guardiola looking to bolster his midfield, maybe losing Gundogan to Barcelona, I think Calvin Phillips is reported to want to leave as well. You wouldn't sell them Kovacic. And I think I mentioned it on a few pods ago. Kovacic under Guardiola in that system would excel. To be able
Yeah.
to play alongside Haaland and De Bruyne and Grealish and Mahrez, it'd be scary. It would be scary. So should he leave, I'd much rather maybe we even sell him for a bit less, but to a Bayern Munich or abroad, let him go back to Spain. But yeah, another one that I think I've come to that realization that I wouldn't be too upset if he leaves now. And also makes you realise, would we need a replacement in midfield? We've got Enzo, we've got Kante. The other kind of midfielders we have aren't really natural central mids, Mount, Loftus-Cheek, Gallagher. So I feel like we may need a replacement, which may mean we have to go back into the transfer market and look at replacements. I don't know if Declan Rice is one that would be that'll be too expensive. I think maybe his recent European performances have put that price tag up. A few other names, but João Palhinha from Fulham, for me, we could get a lot cheaper. And he's a very good player, in my opinion. We linked him last summer, but Edson Alvarez from Ajax, Mexican central midfield, but he's decent as well. So yeah, there's a few options, but I think it wasn't one of those positions we desperately needed to strengthen before the potential Kovacic departure. So yeah, definitely a sellable asset, but we can't afford to lose him to City.
I think I'm resigned to the fact, like you said, I think we will lose him. I think for me, it's key what you just said in terms of bringing in a player before we let the player go. And I think we've always done that recently, where we allow players to leave, and then we don't get the sufficient replacement or an ideal replacement to bring them in, and then get to the end of the window and we're panicking and we're bringing in Saul Niguez and disrespect to him, but someone of that level just doesn't what we need at the moment. So I think we need to get the player that we want in first, or have some sort of agreement in place, and then allow that player to go. Do the other way around, as opposed to strengthening Manchester City or whoever he ends up with. Let's get our players in first. And I think it's a difficult one for us because we still know we've got to get rid of players. We still know that we've got to trim the squad down, but we also need to sell players and bring players in. So it's a really difficult period for us because we've got to do two things. We've got to bring quality in, but also trim down at the same time, which is a bit weird. But yeah, I mean, Kovacic hasn't been the player that we know he can be. And I agree with you 100%, putting him into that Pep Guardiola squad, Kevin De Bruyne, even the players behind him now, look at John Stones, that new role that he's got as well. It just suits him so well. You look at the wide players in Grealish and Mahrez, and if City go for a player, there's a reason they go for a player. There's a reason why they let players go. The Sterlings and Cancelo, who went to Bayern Munich, I think, as well. There's a reason why these players go, and because Pep Guardiola doesn't see a future for them. But when someone comes in, and I get your point about Cucurella, it's a good shout. But when there's a player that Pep wants, there's a reason why he's going to fit into that system. And they've been watching Kovacic clearly, obviously, and seen something that is of use at City. So interesting one to keep an eye on. I just wanted to add as well, because I was reading this morning around Pochettino, obviously, and I think you put out a tweet this morning. I feel like we've been at the final stages for Pochettino for some weeks now, probably 2 or 3 weeks. But I did read in an article this morning that he has actually spoken to Frank Lampard and Reece James about leaders, the morale of the dressing room, trying to maybe get a feel of what's going on. And you'd assume maybe Frank Lampard's had that conversation with, if this is a fact that this has taken place, but you'd expect Kovacic's name to have come up at some point, and maybe the idea that he does need to leave, or his mind's not in the right place. But it's interesting if Pochettino has had those conversations, because it clearly shows that, one, the deal is almost done, and two, maybe he's going to convince Kovacic to stay, or maybe he does decide he needs to go and he's got other players in mind as well. What's your thoughts on Poch really at the moment? Because it's gone a bit quiet. I think I read as well, there's it's image rights. I think that's kind of stalling things as well. So what's your thoughts on why it's taken so long? Is there an urgency to bring in Pochettino, or at least announce it maybe to calm down the Chelsea fan base?
Yeah, I feel like it's been a good month now of these kind of rumors or tweets being like it's finalized, it's in the last stage of the negotiations or this, and it seems to have dragged on a bit now. I was hoping to have it all wrapped up by end of April, but it seems like it's going to be maybe announced at the end of the season now, or potentially post-season, which is not what I really wanted. I wanted that manager to be able to be in the stands at Stamford Bridge for the Forest or the Newcastle game, which I don't think is going to be the case anymore. Um, but if what Fabrizio Romano has tweeted is accurate, which usually it is, it seems like it's in the very last stage now, and it could be announced this week or next week. I definitely feel like there's been work already happening behind the scenes. Like you said, the fact he's spoken to Lampard about leaders, Reece James as well, and also there's rumours that he was looking to keep Lukaku and Pulisic in his squad, goes to show that he's already planning for next season. He already knows what he wants, which is what I want to hear. But yeah, for the fans, I think it would put our mind at ease. I think maybe Lampard's win last week has maybe calmed the fans down a little, and thank goodness for that. But yeah, I think it needs to be done in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully Newcastle game will have him in alongside Bowley in the director's box.
Yeah, a part of me, I mean, I agree with you, but a part of me thinks maybe is it because they don't want to overshadow what Lampard's trying to do at the club as well. And I do get that, new manager. I mean, he's got under the clear instructions that a manager is coming in, so it's not like he's going to be shocked to see Pochettino in the stands. But I think maybe is it just maybe a bit of a respect thing for Frank Lampard to not have the new manager announced maybe until maybe like you say the Forest game, or maybe after, or maybe just before, and he's in the stands, he's presented to the fans. Then I don't know, but it just seems a bit weird that he's wants the job. Everything seems lined up, and we're just almost waiting to press a button to announce something. So yeah, I mean, I'm in no doubt that he's going to take the job. He's going to be the new Chelsea manager. I just think it's a case of when. Maybe the Legends game. I mean, the way things are going, we could have an interim for a month, and he comes in September. We don't know, but I'm hoping it's a lot sooner.
Di Matteo managing us even before the Legends game.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past Bowley, to be fair. The way things are going at the moment, but let's talk under-20s World Cup selections, because there was a lot of talk, obviously, about one particular player who wasn't included, and we've mentioned him earlier on already today, Lewis Hall. But I do want to talk about some of the players that have been included in that England squad, particularly because I think it's a massive achievement for them. First of all, I think we have to say that, but. Not seeing Lewis Hall in there has obviously ruffled a couple of feathers. I think there's a good point to make that the World Cup, I think, starts next week. I think it's next Friday, so it's the 20th of May. And obviously, as the Athletic have reported, obviously, Chilwell's out for the season now by the looks of it. We've lost Coquerel as well. So there is a massive gap at left back. So you would expect, some from what the Athletic have reported, that Lewis Hall's been promised some game time over the next 4 or 5 games, or the remaining part of the season. But Sharman Lowe, Bashir Humphreys, Carney Chukwemeka, Harvey Vale have all made the squad. So it's a massive congratulations, a massive achievement for them, which we'll talk about slightly shortly. But in terms of Lewis Hall, what's your thoughts? Is it the right call for a club, not just Chelsea, but any club, to block potentially what is a development opportunity for a player like Lewis Hall, getting that international experience as well? But obviously, club pays his wages. Does it take precedence over country?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because obviously World Cups don't come too often every 4 years, even if it's at youth level. But at the same time, like you just mentioned, our two kind of first team left backs are injured. Cucurella and Ben Chilwell. I don't think Ben Chilwell or Cucurella might even feature until before the end of the season. And we saw Lewis Hall, he stepped up, I think in January, he played a handful of games and he did quite well at left back. And I think if you're in the reserves, the under 18s, the under 16s, the under 21s, whichever team it is, you need to be ready to be called up to the first team. So I think it might be a bit of a blow for him. I don't know where his head's at. If it's, I want to break into the Chelsea first team and play for the first team, train with the first team, or if I want to represent my country, even if that's at youth level. But I think as Chelsea fans, we've got to be slightly selfish and say that we need him. We need him for the next 4 or 5 games of the season. So yeah, I think when we do our predicted lineups for tomorrow's game, he's in my predicted lineup, and he'll probably be in my predicted lineups for the games at the Etihad and at Old Trafford as well.
Yeah, I mean it's a shame for him because he's definitely a player when I've watched. He's got a lot of talent. He's very versatile. He's not just a left back. He can slot into that midfield, those sort of defensive midfield roles as well. So I do think he's very versatile and would definitely have benefited going to the World Cup at 100%. But I think, as we've rightly pointed out, when you've got your two key first team, left back or left sided options in defence out, you do have to be very selfish. And we haven't had the best of seasons. We can't really afford to go into those City games with Aspilicueta playing as a left back. Um, my only worry is that that will be the case with Frank Lampard, and you know, has he? I'd be very annoyed if we get to the point where we're lining up against City, we're lining up against United, and Lewis Hall's on the bench because send him away, let him go and play, represent his country and get some game time experience. Playing in an international tournament at that age is crucial. When you think about some of the senior players and going back previous years, I remember Theo Walcott went to a World Cup, but didn't kick a ball, and I think it was under Sven-Goran Eriksson. So it's important for some of these players to get that understanding of the international tournament level very early on. So when they do get a call up to the senior squad, they're aware of what's happening around them and what's expected of them. So I'm hoping he gets some game time. I think he will. I think he has to. He's a really good player, and I've said to you offline as well before. I'm really worried about the youth that we've got at the club at the moment because I think a lot of them. I think Sterling, not Raheem. What's his
Dujon.
name now? Dujon Sterling, I think, is linked with Rangers on a free transfer. Another big one, Alfie Gilchrist as well. Another player I think that is potentially being linked away with other clubs as well. So there's so many of our youth talent that we've got, our young talent. We have to nurture them and try and use them in the best way possible. So this could benefit us in a way. It could mean, you mentioned earlier about Aubameyang being linked with a move to Atletico. I think you mentioned last night to me that Cucurella is one of those other players that's linked with the move to bring down the fee for Felix as well. So if that is the case, that gives Lewis Hall the option to be the backup alongside, Ben Chilwell as the left-sided option. So there's a lot for him to go. He's a promising young player. I can't wait to see him next season.
Yeah, 100%. And I think our youth is looking really promising, as it always is at Chelsea. You mentioned all the English boys that got picked for the for the World Cup, and there's a few others as well. I think Cesare Casadei from Reading was also picked. The really kind of young, promising Brazilian superstar we have, Andre Santos, was picked for Brazil. This Ecuadorian lad that we signed recently, I think I forgot his name, Caes Paez, something like that.
Yeah.
He was picked as well. So we have, youth from all across the world representing their countries at this World Cup. And I think, like you said, it is a bit of a blow for Lewis Hall. But I think once you start training with that first team, you've got to be aware that you've got first team responsibilities now. And he's definitely got that first team level. But it would be a huge blow if we see Azpilicueta at left back for those remaining games, and Hall is just sitting on the bench thinking to himself, I could be at the World Cup right now. So yeah, definitely I think it will be quite telling of what happens in the next few weeks.
Yeah, let's hope we don't go to a back five and see Christian Pulisic or Raheem Sterling playing as a left wing back, which we did get to see, I think, under Graham Potter, I think, for a while. So let's keep it with the youth, because there was a tweet or videos that went viral yesterday around Charlie Holland, who's the under 14s captain, who was training with the senior squad yesterday, potentially even today as well. First of all, massive achievement for someone of that age to be even considered by Frank Lampard as someone who's ready to train with the senior squad. Give me your thoughts. I mean, it's a massive achievement.
Yeah, it's a huge achievement, but it's also such a nice gesture from Lampard. Obviously, our season is kind of over now, but having under 14s captain train with the likes of these experienced players like Kante, Aubameyang, Kovacic, Mendy, Kepa, it's huge for him, and it's a day he'll remember for the rest of his life. And I don't know if this is kind of an indication that he could be involved in a senior match coming soon, maybe coming off the bench to make a cameo appearance, and maybe mark himself as Chelsea player to look up, to keep an eye on. But I think someone I might have read as well that maybe there was just a slot to fill in the senior first team training with a few injuries. Maybe we have to the likes of James, Chilwell, Cucurella. And also apparently now the under 21 season is finished. So they've all gone. They're no longer at Cobham. and the under-18s are in Germany for end-of-season friendlies against Wolfsburg and RB Leipzig. So maybe if we wanted to pick a player to train with the first team, it had to be from the under-14s. But either way, a fantastic achievement and an amazing gesture from Lampard, and a day that Charlie Holland will undoubtedly remember for the rest of his life.
And another thing as well, I mean, it's something that I think will or could project him on. I mean, I remember my good friend Leon Knight, who played for Chelsea. He's played for Chelsea, and he's played for big clubs after that. Sheffield Wednesday, Brighton, MK Dons, Barnsley, just to name a few. But he trained with some Emmanuel Petit, Mario Melchiot, Gianfranco Zola, Frank Lampard. That, I mean, he was a footballer before then, before he even signed as a trainee. But just even, I think he was 17 when he made a first team appearance for Chelsea in the UEFA Cup. Neskfi Sofia, I think they were called. But yeah, I mean, he's gone on to do other things. So I think that could springboard you on, to be a top professional. Just being around those players and in just learning from them, just learning how things are. I mean, I can only imagine from under 14s to senior squad, it's completely different, especially even more so now. So yeah, I mean, it's a massive, massive achievement. And, even if we don't see him pull on a shirt for Chelsea, I'm sure he's going to have a long career like many footballers do at top level when they're at a top club. So yeah, credit to him. But it would be nice to see him maybe at the Forest game, just come on for the last 5 minutes, even if we're losing, just give him a little run out for the last game, which would be interesting. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Ticket prices. Let's talk about the ticket prices. I'm still not 100% sure. Now, I know that Chelsea have frozen the season tickets, general admission season tickets for next season. But there's been a few murmurs, I think, online, especially in the Westview, where they're being increased by up to £300. So I know the official statement said that they're freezing them. But what's your thoughts anyway on the fact that they are freezing what looks like the season tickets for next season?
Well, that's the right call. It's 100% the right call. Bowley's kind of divided opinions amongst the fans. We're currently going through a kind of cost of living crisis, as it's described, and we haven't had a good season. The fans aren't happy with how the players have performed and how the decisions that have been made at the higher level. So I think it was the best decision for the club, for the fans, for the owners. It's the least they can do to satisfy the fans right now, who have devoted so much time, money, and energy to watch Chelsea Football Club. So yeah, I think freezing the general admissions tickets was the right call. I think it's been frozen now since maybe 2011, 2012. So I think the next stage is maybe subsidising some of the travel fees that Chelsea fans pay to go abroad, because I think we have such a committed fan base to watching Chelsea travel and abroad. But it's not going to happen next season. But at least maybe if they can do, I think like they did a couple of seasons ago, but help the Chelsea fans get to Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, or give them reduced ticket fees, train ticket fees, that'd be ideal. But yeah, I think it's the right call. In regards to what's happening with Westview, wouldn't really surprise me. I've got so many mates that have season tickets up there, and I occasionally get to use them. Great facilities, but I know that there was a sudden price increase from this season to last season to this season. And I think, especially if my mate wants to keep this seat, the exact two seats he had in that specific kind of zone of Westview, it would have been too expensive for him given the increase. So maybe there's a chance, like you said, or a couple of murmurs that are being whispered online about the increase to £300. That wouldn't surprise me either. But yeah, like I said, probably the best decision that Bowley could have taken, and the only decision he could have taken.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think, based on this season alone, our league position, our performances on the pitch as well. There's been obviously a lot of talk about the ticket exchange as well. There's been so many season tickets that have been available throughout the season as well. I think one of the latest ones was the Brentford game recently, where there was quite a lot of tickets that were available on exchange. But one of the things that I think in the statement that did kind of spring out to me was that Chelsea owners have said that they will take some time next season to review our overall ticketing strategy and approach, consult with our fan advisory board and other key stakeholders to ensure supporters' voices are heard as we look to the future. So I'm hoping that means the virtual waiting room.
I was thinking the same. I was thinking the same when I read that yesterday.
I'm hoping that's what it means, because it's not been as bad recently, because obviously the results means that so many people are out trying to get tickets. But it's one of the reasons why I stopped trying to get tickets, because it's just disheartening when you're trying to you sat on an iPad or a laptop and you're waiting to get into something. You finally get through, and there's either only a certain amount of tickets that you can't get because of junior tickets or whatever, senior tickets, or they're sold out by the time you get into the the pay screen, the pay area. So I think they have to look at that. And I know the expansion of Stamford Bridge, or the redevelopment of Stamford Bridge, will hopefully help that over the next couple of seasons. But it's something that's got to be looked into, because it's really frustrating, trying to get tickets for match days at the moment.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think just the kind of whole process, the interface as well, which sometimes lets me down. I get to the payment stage, and it works out my card details, even though I'm putting them in correctly. Um, it shows availabilities in certain stands. I click on them, no availabilities. There's so much that's wrong with that virtual waiting room system, and I think that's the number one thing that the board need to address with this fan advisory team. So yeah, hopefully that can be amended for next season.
Yep, definitely 100%. Now, Forest, Nottingham Forest. Um, I'm not going to say it. I nearly did. I've just stopped myself from saying what I usually say. Interesting game. Let's call it an interesting game. Off the back of the Bournemouth performance, you would expect some sort of continual progression from that performance last Saturday. But just give me your overall thoughts before we get into predictions, about your overall thoughts, expectations going into tomorrow's game.
Yeah, definitely more confident than I was for the previous games throughout April. Like you said, maybe that win against Bournemouth might give us that bit of momentum that we need at the moment to maybe finish the season strongly. We know that kind of very scrappy win we got against Leeds start of March helped us get maybe the win against Dortmund, and then that win against Leicester away from home. So I'm kind of hoping for the same type of results coming in the next few weeks. I'm still expecting a tough game. I think Forest have a lot to play for. Their future is still not 100% guaranteed in the league. They've got a good team. We have to remember that they've got a lot of players from. They've got Keylor Navas, a three-time Champions League winner, in goal. They've got, I think, that lad from Atletico Madrid, Lodi,
Yeah.
and there's that other guy. He looked very good in the reverse fixture back in January. I forgot his name, but yeah, they've got a good team. Very unpredictable. I think their last result was a 4-3 win against Southampton. So they obviously they can concede goals, but they look good going forward as well. We need to be very solid defensively. It's a type of game where I do think we shouldn't change the team too much from that team that played fairly well against Bournemouth. I definitely feel like the last thing you want to be doing is dropping Badiashile after his performance against Bournemouth and not having him play again until maybe last game of the season, which is what happened recently. He hasn't featured since that game against Brighton. So yeah, I think lineup is key. I think Madueke is another one that needs to start. He looked really promising against both Arsenal and Bournemouth. But yeah, I'm still definitely a lot more confident, but still, as a Chelsea fan this season, you can't be overly confident, can you?
I mean, a team that's conceded 65 goals, Nottingham Forest. I'm expecting some goals. I'm expecting some goals tomorrow. I don't care how we score them, if they're own goals or worldies. I don't care. I want some goals tomorrow, because 65 goals conceded means that we should be scoring regardless of who we who we put out to line up tomorrow. But no, I agree with you 100%. I think sometimes less change is better. And I think one of the players that we didn't mention earlier on was Noni Madueke, who, back-to-back games now has looked very much like a player that's not scared to take players on, wants to get that ball in the box, committed to getting the ball forward as much as possible. So he has to stay in the team for me. But yeah, I mean, this is a game, again, a nothing game, really. More pride in terms of the fact that with Chelsea we should be beating Nottingham Forest. They do have some really good players. Look at Morgan Gibbs-White, Brennan Johnson as well. Thinking on the right side for them. They've got some really good players, like the Lodi that you mentioned as well. So it's going to be a difficult game, and I think they are. Yeah, they are still fighting for their Premier League survival for next season. They're only 3 points from the drop. These are the sort of games that they're going to be up for. And I said this a couple of weeks ago, that they are going to be. It's going to be these kind of games. Even last week with Bournemouth, but these sort of games where they're scrapping for those points down there, almost like we are. But for different reasons. But they're going to want to get 3 points, and they're not going to be scared to approach that game, I think, from kickoff with the intention to try and score as many goals, knowing how bad we've been defensively this season as well. I think Cooper will set them up to really go from the start of the game. So we have to be switched on at the back. Badiashile has to be in that team as well. But nonetheless, I still think 3 points. And I'm saying that sort of half-heartedly, but I think based on what I'm reading here, 65 goals. They've only scored the same amount of goals as us, but conceded 65 goals. You just said it right before, they can score goals, but, they are quite leaky at the back as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough, but at home, I expect us to beat them 100%. Lineup, let's start with your predicted lineup.
I think we might
What
be
have you gone for?
in agreement. I'll go with Kepa. I think we didn't mention it, but he made some solid saves against Bournemouth. So yeah, I think he needs to retain his spot. And then we mentioned maybe Mendy last week, but I think Kepa needs to start. I still don't know if I want a back three or a back four today. It's a tricky one because I think we still have those options at right back at the moment. It's either Chaloba or Aspi, but I think it worked fairly well against Bournemouth. So I'm going to go with a back four. I'm going to go with Chaloba, Badiashile, Silva, Lewis Hall. Then I'm going to go with Enzo and Kante as my central mids, with Gallagher just ahead of them. And then it's got to be Madueke, João Felix. And this is where it gets tricky because Havertz was useless against Bournemouth. He's trying to take a header with his back, back facing the goal. And then Aubameyang, I don't think will feature again until the end of the season. And then I'm going to say, but I'm going to start Fofana. I'm going to start Datro Fofana. I think this is a type of game we haven't seen him feature since that game against Southampton where he had to be taken off at half time. But yeah, I think this is a good game for him. Get a couple minutes or a couple cameos or even a couple starts before the end of the season and get his confidence up, whether he stays at Chelsea this summer or goes out on loan. But I think a good game for him to start. So I'm going to go with David Datro Fofana.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I'd go with. I did question maybe do I put Raheem ahead of João Felix, but I don't know what's happened to Sterling. I think it's a confidence thing, or I don't know. Something seems to have sort of dropped off for him. But I
Another
think
one who had an impact off the bench actually for his assist for Felix.
he
Yeah,
did, he did. I just think, as I said, I think this game is going to be where Nottingham Forest are going to be from the start, are going to be pressing front foot football. They're going to want to be trying to running behind or isolate certain players and definitely try and command the midfield. So I think for that kind of game, I think you do need someone like João Felix who at the other end is going to try and do exactly the same as what they're trying to do. And I don't know if Sterling would do that. I agree with Fofana, David Datro Fofana in that number 9 role. I just think Aubameyang now, like I said, I think it's that kind of weird period for him where he's clearly going to go. Club don't really want to be paying fees out for someone that's going to be leaving the club, appearance fees. So, it kind of makes sense. And why not? Why not give Fofana an opportunity? Someone that clearly may be here next season. I know we haven't mentioned it, but Armando Broja apparently is ahead of his schedule in terms of his rehabilitation. So you'd expect him to feature definitely for pre-season. But I think we need to give Fofana an opportunity to at least see whether he needs to go on loan next season. We can't just send him out on loan because we might actually have a role for him to play in our club next season. So I think play him, see what he can do. You do have the likes of Kai Havertz that can come off the bench. Raheem Sterling can play in that sort of false 9 or whatever you want to call it. He can play across the whole of the front 3. So there's options off the bench as well. But I would go with João Felix. I'd go with Noni Madueke and David Datro Fofana as the front 3. And I agree with you, Conor Gallagher, not in a sort of flat free midfield, more so just an advanced role in front of Enzo and Kante. I think that would work so much better as opposed to which I think he did kind of do that against Bournemouth. I don't think it was just a free midfield. He was more advanced than the other two, and it worked. It worked. And I know I'll call him a bull in a china shop, but this could be the game where we need him to do that. We really do. We need him to be bullish and obviously not get sent off, but to get some tackles in and win that ball back for us.
Yeah, I think we're kind of in agreement with the lineup then.
Yeah. Shame on Mendy. I think Mendy. I mean, again, I think he could leave in the summer. You spoke about some of the assets that we've got, but I think he's another one.
He got a new agent today as well, which could maybe mean that he he might look elsewhere. I think he's the type of keeper that will want first team football. He's not injured anymore. There's no reason why he shouldn't be starting in his eyes. So I think his new
Yeah.
agent that he's just acquired may try to look for a move away. But you do wonder which club would maybe look at him. I think every club, top club at least, has got their first choice number one. So it'll be an interesting one.
A swap for Onana at Inter.
It's a
Could be part of the
possibility.
Lukaku. Could
Yeah.
we get some Lukaku situation involved there as well? But no, it's right. I think Kepa has proven himself as a good goalkeeper. I still think we need to bring someone in. I do think we need a very solid goalkeeper, and I think out of the two, Kepa seems to be the one that can pull off those. And Mendy was, Mendy. If you think back to Mendy when he first signed, he was. I mean, we were calling him world class.
He would have won
You
that
can't.
Champions League without his contributions.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, he's someone that has still got quality in him. I just think he needs to maybe move on now, or understand his role has changed as first choice at Chelsea, whoever we bring in. But let's get back to the game for tomorrow. As we said, it's a game that we expect we should be winning. But give me your score prediction before we wrap up. What's the score potentially going to be tomorrow?
Yeah, I think there's going to be goals, like you said. I don't think it's going to be that kind of 0-0, 1-0. I think it's going to be a replica of the scoreline of last week. I think Chelsea will win 3-1. I'm going to go with that.
I'm going to go 3-0. I'm going to go 3-0. I'm hoping we get our defense right tomorrow. I think it's going to be questionable. I still think Azpilicueta will play on that right. So if we play back four, I can see Azpilicueta coming in as a right back. That might then give you the option of going 3 centre backs with obviously Chalobah moving over to support Badiashile and Thiago Silva with Lewis Hall. But I wouldn't change that. I'm going against my own sort of policy, but I'd go with a back four, and I'd keep Trevor Chalobah there as right back, and I'd put Lewis Hall as left back. Gives us more options in midfield as well. So I'd be very reluctant to change that, but I'm going to go 3-0. I'm going to go 3-0.
Chelsea are scoring 3 goals, which is something that we haven't seen too often this season. So we're both in agreement there.
65 goals conceded by Nottingham Forest. I want some goals tomorrow.
It'd be embarrassing if we don't score a couple, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh, we need to score a goal at least. Make it 66 conceded for the season for Nottingham Forest. But it's going to be a good game. Stamford Bridge, I'm sure, will be rocking, as it hasn't been for the last couple of weeks. But I'm sure, with that win from Bournemouth, we'll hopefully give that. And the Thiago Silva banner, we haven't mentioned that as well. The new banner that will be presented tomorrow ahead of kickoff. I don't know if are you going to the game?
Yeah.
So it should be interesting. It could end in tears. You could be walking out of Stamford Bridge 3-0 down at half time.
Yeah, I'm going with my mate who likes a drink or two. So hopefully that will numb the pain if we lose. Yeah,
you're gonna need it. But no, it should be a good game. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what you think the predicted lineup will be from Frank Lampard, and also the result tomorrow. Are we actually going to win another game, back-to-back wins? Can't believe I'm saying it. Are we going to get another victory under Frank Lampard? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up, and also make sure you hit the notification bell as well. Theo, as always, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. We'll be back next week with another episode of From the Shed End. Thank you very much for watching.